All right, this is the first of hopefully many tutorials on um, Lightroom and Photoshop. This particular one is for Lightroom on how to create a preset for PhotoEntry. So you can put your PDIs and your print thumbnails into PhotoEntry for competitions. So there's the first thing you need to do is get into the export dialog box, and there's three ways to do that. One way is to right click on an image and go down to the export menu where it will show you all your various export options. And this is where your user exports will be. But to create one, you need to go up to export, which is at the top. And when you click on that, it brings up this export dialog box. So that's number one way to get there. Number two would be go to File and down to Export. And again, that will bring up this same export dialog box. And the third way is to go down to the bottom of your screen, the bottom left-hand corner, and there's an export button. And if you click on that, you'll also get this export dialog box. So now that we have this up, let's go ahead and create a new one. Creating export dialogs are a little bit backwards. You can't add it first. You have to create it over here, and then when you're done, add it, which is a little counterintuitive. So anyway, let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is export to, and we want to export to the hard drive, and that's up at the top. And then we select the location. So we don't want to go to the desktop. We want to go to a specific folder. So this is handy for when you want to always send your exports to the same place so you don't have to wonder where they went and go hunting for them. So in this case, when I selected the specific folder, it jumped over to my user account, a folder called temp and club, and that's because it was already created. But if you don't have something like that, you go over here to choose, and it will bring up your Finder in Mac or your Explorer in Windows, and then you can go and select where it is you want to put it. And you should put it in, right now I'm putting it on this local hard drive because that's the only drive this machine has. But it's always a good idea to save it to an external drive or a scratch drive, because these are temporary files that you don't need to keep track of, and you also don't want them clogging up your system drive. That should be for your programs only, not for temporary files. So okay, so it's got my folder selected, and then there's this other thing, put in subfolder, and I don't want to do that, but you could. So I'm going to uncheck that. I don't want to add it to the catalog because I'm not keeping track of them. These are temporary files. And if there's already a file there, if it's an existing file, then please ask what to do with it. So the next thing then is file renaming. I tend to rename my files when I export them. You don't have to. It'll keep the same name, and that's fine. But in this case, I'm going to rename them. And right now it just says file name, which means it's not going to change much. So let's go to a custom name and the original file number. That's the one I use the most. And you'll see down here in the example it says untitled and then gives me a number. Well, the untitled is because I haven't put my custom text in. So if I just put my name, then you can see down in the example, it puts there. And for extensions, lowercase is fine. So that's the way I'm going to rename my files, with my name and then the file number or the original file number of the file. And you can see those numbers out here, and these have file numbers on them. All right, so the next one is video, and we don't care about video, but we do care about file settings. So in file settings, we know from the competition rules that the image format is supposed to be a JPEG. So we go up here and we select JPEG. We also know that the color space is sRGB, and there's several different ones here, but sRGB is the one you want to pick. Now for a PDI, I would have quality at 100 or 90, but no less than that. For a print, when you're just sending in a digital copy of that, you can have it, as low as 50 or 60. They're going to be a little pixely, but they don't have to be good because the judge is looking at the print and not the screen. All right, so quality, I'm going to leave it at 100. Actually, let's change that to 90 and leave it there. Okay, next thing is image sizing. And we know we need to do some image sizing because there are requirements for that. Now you can, if you go and look at the rules on the club website, it says digital images must be no more than 1400 pixels wide by 1015 pixels high. And there's the JPEG and the sRGB requirement. So 1400 by 1050. Well, the easiest way to do that is to resize to fit width and height, and don't enlarge. Don't enlarge means if your image is already that size or smaller, it's not going to blow it up, which would tend to pixelate it. And then we know that the width is 1400 and the height is 1050. Resolution doesn't really matter for these because they're being projected digitally. If you're printing them, then that could come into play. So 1400 by 1050, ignore resolution. Output sharpening, I'd leave that turned off. Right there, you can sharpen for the screen or printing or whatever. I'd just leave it off so you get what you asked for. Metadata, include metadata. You have different choices there. You can copyright only, copyright and info only. I'll accept the camera raw info and so on. What I would do is I would either copyright only or contact and info only. So I'm going to put that on, and it blocks out everything. If you put include all metadata, then you still can remove certain information. Watermarking, leave that off. You don't want any watermarks. And post-processing means after you've exported, what do you want to do? You can do nothing, as it says here. I usually like to have it show me in the Finder. And if you're Windows, it'll say Show in Explorer. That way it just brings up a window and makes it easy for me to find them. Okay, now I've created all of the options for an export. If I clicked on export, it would just export whatever file I have selected, and it wouldn't save that setting. So what I want to do now is save it, and that's where you go back over to this add button. So I click on add, and it brings up a title. So I go via photo entry, and it's going to put it in my user presets folder, and I say create. Now, if I scroll down here into my user presets, you can see there's now a new PhotoEntry user preset, and I can say done. So now, if I have a photo that I want to, or photos that I want to export for PhotoEntry, I can select them, like here's one, and here's one, and here's one. Let's say those three. All I have to do is right click on those, go down to export, Whoop, didn't give me the right menu. Let's do it on the image. There we go. Export. Find your PhotoEntry user preset. Click on that. And it did it really quickly. There's the 3 images that it just created for PhotoEntry. And if I click on those, get the info on it, you can see that it's 1400 by 933. So it's moved it, it's resized it to be within the parameters. So this one's shorter because it's not exactly 1400 by 1050, but it's within that space, and that's what this does. And it shows the color profile is the sRGB. We can close that up, and there they are. So now you have a preset for exporting any of your images for PhotoEntry. Give it a try, create one. You'll find it very useful, and we'll see you in the next video.